Hello everyone, Nathaniel Martin here, and I'm doing another Full Sail update. It's been a few months, as I'm sure you can tell by the length of my hair. So those of you who have watched the other episodes of this show know that I was trying to update every single month to kind of give how that month went, the classes, how like life in general was going, and just giving everyone an overall retelling of my Full Sail experience. One reason I want to do this is to kind of keep my friends and family back home updated. Another way is I want anyone who's thinking or considering about Full Sail at any time to feel free to ask me questions or feel free to use this as a testament to how the Full Sail Film Bachelor's Degree program is. And I mean that in any capacity whatsoever. Because I found that it was hard to find an unbiased review of what Full Sail was when I was applying for schools. And I found that whenever I found a video on YouTube, it was someone who was very opinionated and someone who wasn't succeeding for probably a reason that is justified, and they were upset with the school. And I wanted to do just like a neutral coming in, this is where I've committed to go, and this is where I'm wanting to learn and wanting to spend my time, and then kind of just update everyone. So I've been trying to do that every month, but the way December ran, it was a very, very weird month for Full Sail because we had just gotten back from Thanksgiving break, which kind of cut a little bit into most people's schedules. It was like they took a 4 week long month and condensed it into like 3.5. Well, December, we were losing a whole like 2 weeks, so we had pretty much a 2.5 week long class that was supposed to be a 4 week class, and it was just a lot. And I took two classes that month. I took art history and script writing techniques. Script writing techniques was probably my favorite class we've taken up to that point. It was really great working with the teachers. Again, on this show, I don't really call out people's names. I don't feel that's acceptable, and I really want to keep it correct. And I don't want to single out teachers that don't do a good job or teachers that do a great job, and I'm sure they don't want all the additional publicity. But my scriptwriting techniques teacher was a very helpful person. He's got experience writing scripts and doing stuff like it. He's in the process of publishing a book that I think is really going to help a lot of first-time screenwriters. But I was someone who's probably a bit more advanced than the rest of the class, or at least I thought I was, because I had written scripts for my friends and doing random projects, and I kind of had a gist of what the formatting looked like. But I had been writing like a developed screenplay, like something that I was going to produce, something that I was going to direct, something I was going to have a big part of. But what this class did is they taught you how to write a spec script. So a script that you could just give to anyone and ask them to shoot it, ask them to adapt it, ask them to essentially, this is the kind of script that you would be selling if you wanted to get into screenwriting. So it was a great class because we got to see creative writing students again, who we hadn't seen since VEM in month 2. So it was kind of great to have a class with people from a different degree program, but on the same track. They have advanced screenwriting techniques for the creative writing students. Scriptwriting techniques is the only scriptwriting class for the Bachelor of Science film. So I tried to cherish every moment that I could. I edited scripts for other students and wrote multiple drafts of mine, adjusting it to the changes that we were discussing in class. And I felt like because of that, I definitely got the most out of my script and my project. However, I understand that a lot of students didn't necessarily like the class because they were like, well, this is a creative writing class. I don't see why we're taking it. But I do see the value in it because every student needs to be able to read a script and know how they're going to translate that into a visual medium. Even just taking the formatting class is going to help students who are just reading a script understand how to make that a movie. The other class we took in December was art history, and art history at Full Sail is pretty much like what you immediately think of art history. It's one of those common ed classes you got to get out of the way, and it was the most boring class I've taken here. But I set my expectations pretty low because I figured, they're trying to cram this 4 week long, which is really a semester long art history class, into really about 2.5 weeks. So really, it was just listening to a teacher read off a PowerPoint and show examples of certain art movements, but there was very little segue from one art movement to the next. And it felt like the teacher was trying to make it engaging for the students, but she really didn't care if students were on their laptops or listening to music, and no one was really giving it their full attention. I remember I was sitting all the way in the back. It was like I could see everyone. There were kids bringing in video game controllers and playing video games in the class, and it was like, I get it's just an easy A, but I mean, you really got to think about, how much money are you putting into and investing into this school, into this class in general, and it might not necessarily be worth your time, but if you can just pick out the vocabulary terms, it might help you in the long run. So I tried to give it my all. Me and my roommate were actually sitting in the back row together, and we were the only two participating whenever she'd ask questions and try to prepare for the test. We were two of like five people in the class, like even awake at that point. So I could see that class upsetting a lot of other students, but I think those same students really need to realize that art history isn't going to be the most exciting class you're going to take. And we actually did go on a really exciting field trip. We went to the Orlando Museum of Art, which is just it's only like 10 miles from here, so it's not that far. But we gotta see all these really cool art exhibits, and they had us do like a scavenger hunt, which I thought was like a little childish, but it kept everyone involved and engaged there for multiple hours. And once the scavenger hunt was complete, all you had to do was take a couple pictures of your favorite artworks and then write a short essay on them. And that was the final. There was also a test, but the test was what we were going over in the class. It wasn't a super difficult class, but if you gave it your time, especially at the museum, I think the kids that had the most fun in the class, like myself, actually like took full advantage of the museum trip and looked at their favorite pieces of art and started discussions with other classmates about that piece of art. And the Orlando Museum of Art was really cool. I had some very contemporary art pieces, but then I had some like prehistoric ancient art as well on display. It was a very wide range, and if you're ever in the area, I would definitely recommend giving it a shot. I learned a lot in just a short amount of time. It was like a whole other environment. It was like if we could just have every day at that art museum, that class would have been everyone's favorite class. My biggest problem with the class was that it was just kind of like a study hall while a teacher was reading a PowerPoint. And I get it, it's art history. You can't necessarily tie it into everything, but I think the class had film, digital arts and design, game design, even it had every degree program that had to take art history had students in that class. So because of that, it felt like it wasn't necessarily catered to our degree program. So I think it would have been really cool if it was just a bunch of film students taking an art history class, so then they could talk about art history's impact on film. And I think that would have made it a lot more engaging for a lot of students, like maybe talking about not necessarily certain films, but certain styles of paintings that inspired a certain style of film. I think that would have been a lot more engaging, but then again, it would take more instructors, and I understand why that's not the case and why it's easier to kind of group all the degree programs that need an art history credit to have one in one place. And then last month, January, I was in composition of visual design, and it was the only class we had that month. But it was a pretty large class in terms of number of hours you needed to be there, but at the same time, it was very relaxed. It was a great month to go and get PA hours and get all these additional credits, which is what I did. I took full advantage of the kind of lax schedule that this class had and found myself putting over 100 hours on set in January, doing my best to do everything I can outside of class at the school. It was a great way to kick off the year for me. I got to do some grip work, and I've kind of stepped out of PA positions, and I've gotten more involved with grip and art department and doing more exciting things on a set than watching a door or taking stuff from people's hands. It was a very rewarding month for me, and composition of visual design was a great class. The teacher was a lot of fun, and we started off the class learning about like the theoretical process of filmmaking and things that you wouldn't necessarily think about, like the layout of a shot in shot composition. but more specifically, like, why is that the focus of the shot? Why is that as well lit as it is? We watched a scene from the movie There Will Be Blood with Daniel Day-Lewis. It's a Paul Thomas Anderson flick where we got to see what the audience was looking at. They had these like eye tracer devices on the test audience, and it was so cool because that's how your eyes see it. You just don't think about it, and you could tell where certain things were going to happen next just because people could detect the movement before it happened. And that kind of stuff was really fascinating to me. As someone who is very interested in film and watches a lot of movies, it was like there's like this language to film that most people don't understand, but I was it was like taking a foreign language class, but I already knew the language. It was really interesting and really fascinating, and that was just the first few days. Then the class kind of switched to a more hands-on class, and we went out and did short film projects, like photo shoot sessions to show off the visual concepts and shot composition that we had learned. We learned how to create a shot list and how to take a shot list and shoot it. And these were very short, low budget or no budget, just DSLR videos with our friends and with classmates. I think that this was probably my favorite class so far. This and script writing techniques were the two that I think I'm getting the most out of so far. And those were just the normal classes. The lectures were going out and shooting and editing and working as a team with people you don't know yet. And because of that unique element, I really enjoyed my time in the class, and it was a lot of fun. But then we had labs, and the labs were centered around lights, and they're in this soundstage at the school. It's the oldest soundstage at the school and also the tallest, called Candyland is the nickname for it, but it's soundstage 1A, and it is so much fun. We gotta learn how to set up lights. We started with like the little 650K tweenies in the smaller lights, and then worked our way up. By the end of the class, I was working with like 3,000 watt lights, and it was really cool. We learned how to safely plug them in, turn them on, and then also how to diffuse them and control the light to match movie scenes. And we spent a whole 4-hour lab trying to recreate a shot from the X-Files, and it was just a still image that we were trying to recreate with the two detectives sitting at the computer and just the Rembrandt light on their face and the hair light, and trying to get a light setup that matched theirs perfectly. And it was so much fun, and I learned a lot about the physical application of lighting a shot, lighting a film. And that was also directly applying to what I was doing outside of class. I started moving up from PA to grip work and started being that person manipulating a light on a student's film set. It's cool because I can see what I'm supposed to be learning in class and then directly applying that to actual film. This past month was extremely valuable to me, and so far probably my favorite one. If you have any questions about what the Full Sail Film Program looks like, I'm doing these videos as frequently as I can. Again, the main reason I didn't really do one at the end of December was because that month was just so condensed. I felt like I didn't have much to talk about because my classes went by at the snap of a finger. And then, yeah, and it made sense because January was just a one class month. Although it did feel like two separate classes. The labs where we were in Candyland in the soundstage manipulating lights felt like an entirely different class than the composition of visual design, running out and making short films with friends. But I liked both elements just as much as each other, and they helped hand in hand really further education and allowed you to apply stuff. They gave us like cameras and like rental equipment to borrow for the month, tripods to make these films in an afternoon, and I had a great time because I also worked with students that I hadn't seen around before, I hadn't worked with in the past, and kind of branching out and meeting and working with new students was a great way to kind of get a grasp for my class as a whole. I saw and was a part of many final projects this month for the film program, and I'm starting to get a grasp on the different roles and positions that are needed to make a movie. Yeah, I'm so happy with my education and how much I'm learning at the moment. Again, my biggest gripes were kind of just the curriculum for art history wasn't all that exciting. The script writing techniques class felt like about half the class didn't really care, and that's more on the interest wasn't there for a lot of students, and I understand that because a lot of people don't like the English side of film. They don't like the writing and the analysis, and I get that. So yeah, and then composition and visual design is the best structured class I think we've had so far. I absolutely enjoyed every minute I was in the class, and one thing I really noticed this after coming back from winter break was just kind of like a toxicity in the air. I felt like a lot of students dropped out. I think they might have gone home and realized, maybe I'm not making the right decision, or maybe Full Sail isn't right for me, or I'm thinking I want to spend my time doing something else, or maybe film isn't right for me. Maybe I should take some time off. And it just seemed like there was all this edginess in the air. People were a lot more bitter and a lot more unforgiving after coming back from Christmas break. And I don't know if that was just like a hiatus. People got to spend time with their families and then they came back, or if it was like a lot of people kind of did some soul searching over break and are just disappointed with their time here. But I'm having a great time, and I think this month has definitely solidified all the kind of insecurities I've had on, am I doing enough outside of class, and am I going the right direction to make sure I have a good role and a good time come the final part of my degree program and my final project, and I'm looking forward to seeing what more is to come. Hall of Fame week is coming up in a few days in February, and that's one of the biggest times for Full Sail alumni to come back, for important figures and important people of Full Sail to have a presence. Um, my favorite set that I worked on was a country music video, and I'm not a country music fan, but I got to work with a fellow student who is way further along in his education than me, and he was the gaffer, and I was one of his grips, and I shadowed him for 5 days in a row, and got to set up lights with him, and learned the little tips and tricks that he learned through the program so far. And we were also working with a teacher who was directing the project. Yeah, it was great learning from a teacher who has all this experience and seeing how the real industry works. I really had a lot of fun and learned a lot in that short amount of time, in just 5 days. And the production ran so smoothly because we did all this preparation in advance. And it was great. I actually got a professional credit for that because it was not associated with the school. It was just filmed there. So that was awesome. And working with teachers and students that are way further along and know a lot more, and them passing their knowledge down to me, has been the most valuable thing about Full Sail so far. So I'm really looking forward to what's yet to come. I've only got one class again this month, so I'm flexing and getting a bunch of hours. And like I said, Hall of Fame is right around the corner. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for me to do camera op and audio operation for the panels and the guest speakers. And I hope February is an even better month than January. If you have any questions about Full Sail, the educational process, anything, about me even, just feel free to shoot me a question in the comment section below. I'm going to do my best to answer any questions that I get, and I hope, family and friends, I absolutely love you if you're tuning in to watch this. So thank you. Have a good one.